Hi everyone, welcome back to OC Avery for episode 16 of Breeding British Birds. Now, it's been a few weeks since we've been in the bird room, so we've got plenty to update you on. Today, we've got a number of young canaries weaned away from their parents from that final round. We've got a load of native birds that have also jumped the nest now, some really exciting ones as well. And we've got a very special pair of birds that have been failures all season that we finally got some good news from. So we begin today's episode over here in the young bird room, because this is where about a week ago now we weaned off about 40 odd young birds. Most of those were canaries from that final round, but there is also a couple of brown siskin mules and the odd native or two that's had to be fostered out under some canaries, and they're all looking really good. So we've got a number of young canaries up here, we've got some frills, we've got some crossbreds, we've got some small little rasers, some Irish, and there's some new colours in there as well. And we also have some red harlequin based crossbred feeder canaries as well in here, all youngsters. So they're looking great, and there's a couple of brown siskin mules up here and a couple of green finches out in the flight. So yeah, looking really good. We've been giving them egg food, we've been giving them peas, and they've been getting on well, and they've also quite well adapted to eating some hard seed as well, which is always useful, just so when I've not topped up the egg food for whatever reason, they're not going hungry and they will eat the dry seed as well. So that's really good, positive news from them. Now, it's unusual we don't let canaries go for two or three rounds. This has been the second round, and that was the last round. And the reason we haven't let them go for that third round is because there's been a bit of a buffer period between when we've set eggs, because we've been waiting for some natives that don't sit and put the eggs under them. They've been having some natives that have been abandoned by the parents for whatever reason. We know that that's been a problem with a number of green finches this season. So I just had that where it's come to the mid-July, and I just thought, I'm risking it if I let them go for a third round. They'll start molting or we'll start losing adult birds, which I don't want to be doing. So we've called it off at 2, and I'm very happy with the results. We've got about 80 odd young canaries from this season from 2 rounds, which I'm more than pleased with. Don't forget, we've also got a number of Siberian goldfinch mules, 4 of them to be exact. We've got 3 normals up here and a Saturnet hen. We also have their mother, which is a yellow dimorphic canary, and they were very kindly given to me a few weeks ago by a subscriber of the channel who very sadly has had to pack in his birds rather abruptly. So we went and collected them, and a big thank you to you, mate. You know who you are for them. They're absolutely fantastic. So we've got 4 of them. We've put them on some red colour food, some chlorophyll red, and of course they're in nest feathers, so it's going to be interesting to see how they molt out. I'll update you, of course, every couple of weeks as they are molting, and we'll just see what happens. And I think they're going to be stunning little birds once they've actually fully molted in around October time. I think they'll be done, and it'll be interesting to see what they look like, because usually golden mules are done off the native goldfinch like this one, but these are Siberians, so they're going to be a little bit bigger and perhaps a slightly different shade of sort of brown colours. So the breeding season is all but finished now here at OC Avery. Most of the birds have had their nest sites pulled out now. That's most of the canaries. We've got 2 pairs on standby for some very special little birds I'm going to talk to you about very soon. We've got another pair that are just finishing rearing for us, as are another pair down here, but the rest of them have all had the nest sites pulled out. The same for a number of natives in here, like the red poles, the bramble finches, the green finches. The mule and hybrid pairs, they've had the nest sites out as well. So this next couple of weeks is going to be about finishing off the breeding season and trying to secure those last youngsters as we then go into the molt. And over the next week, I'm going to be taking birds out the cages, taking them down, giving them a good deep clean, and then we'll be putting them into groups for the molt, which will be over the next couple of months really. It'll be sort of the start of October before I expect any birds to be actually finished the molt that are adults. So that's going to be the job over the next week. It's going to be very busy, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a future episode. We've had a very strong end to the breeding season, and this is a combination of things, I believe. I think one is the combination of the maturity of the birds, because a number of them were bred last season, so it's their first breeding season. And 2 is the little bit more consistency in the weather. It's been relatively cold, then relatively warm all season in sort of the space of a week, whereas now it's been a little bit more steady, as just a bit dull and not too cold, not too warm. So I think that's made the difference for us. Now, for the pair in the top cage, we've bred one youngster off them this season. We then had a failed nest, and then we've had 2 more hatch. Well, these guys jumped the nest about 10 days ago now. I removed the nest site yesterday because the hen had started to lay and go back to nest, and we're not letting her go for another round. And those 2 chicks are looking really good. They're about 25 days old now, and they've started feeding themselves. So really good news from those guys, and I'm pleased that we've got 2 more youngsters off them because the youngsters look fabulous so far. For this pair down here, they were the first pair to build a nest for us at the start of this breeding season, yet they didn't lay us an egg until 2.5 months later when they laid 5. Well, their 3 chicks have recently jumped the nest about 5 days ago now. They're looking super, and they're already starting to pick up egg food now, and I'm giving them some petit pois as well, some peas, and they're doing a really good job in eating them as well, which is fabulous news. I'm really pleased with that, and they're looking really good so far. It's 3 more youngsters off a pair I haven't bred off this season, so that's 5 between those 2 cages as well. Then finally, in this cage at the bottom, they had a failed nest about 6 weeks ago now, and finally then went back to nest. Well, their 3 chicks have literally just jumped the nest this morning at about 9 days old. We've got 3 chicks in there, 2 cobalts, 1 normal. The parents are doing a superb job. However, it does look like the cockbird might be starting to molt, so I'm really hoping, keeping my fingers crossed, that he'll be able to continue feeding them for the next couple of weeks until they're fully weaned, because at this moment in time, they're far too small, far too young to start feeding themselves, but looking really good. So that's 8 youngsters across this block in the past couple of weeks to add to our 3 that we've bred from this breeding season, if everything goes well for us. So keep your fingers crossed. Now then, we've got a little bit of excitement that I've known about for a few weeks, and I didn't want to tell you until I had some concrete sort of evidence and something to show you. Now, these birds have been absolute pain this breeding season. We've had about 16 clear eggs off them, and I've decided to let them go for that 4th round before we cut them off for the breeding season, and it's worked. So that is the European twites. Now, we know these guys have been a nightmare. I've tried all sorts. About 6 weeks ago, so in the 10th episode of the show, we made some changes. We give them the extra side of the flight. We put another cockbird in, and we were just there hoping for the best. Well, 2 weeks ago, these guys went for that 4th round. I candled the eggs on the 5th day, and 4 of the eggs were full. Finally, they were full. So about 5 days ago now, 4 or 5 days ago, those eggs have hatched. And to show for it, we've got 2 baby twites in that nest site there. And I can't tell you how excited I am, honestly. It's been really hard this breeding season, not breeding them. I've been desperate to breed them because they are such an unusual species and a hard to breed species, and we've had a little bit of success with them, which is just fantastic. And that's why we've got 2 pairs of canaries behind the camera on standby in case these chicks need to be moved for whatever reason. But they're all first time breeders, these guys, all bred last year, and they're feeding them really well, all 3 of them. I've been giving them some frozen pinkies and some frozen buffaloes from Direct Bird Products, so huge thanks to Shane for that. Links in the description to Direct Bird Products website. I've been giving them some live mealworms, I've been giving them some peas and some egg food, and so far it's worked for us. They're doing a great job, and the 2 youngsters look really healthy and are just beginning to open their eyes. So I think within the next couple of days, I'll be able to ring them, and of course, I'll update you in next week's episode. So please keep your fingers crossed for us, because hopefully we'll finally have got some twites out this season. European greenfinches have probably produced as the last young of the year, because we've had a bit of success recently. In this bottom cage down here, these guys laid a couple of eggs a few weeks ago, and I didn't really, drop on them. I didn't really know they were there. I sort of knew that the hen was on the nest a lot, but I'd not really put my hand in to bother. I'd not candled them until a few days ago. I saw some eggshells on the floor, and the hen was feeding a couple of chicks at a day old at that point in time. So popped some egg food in, sorted them out, and those chicks are now about 3 days old, and they're looking really good. That's a pair that have bred for me once already this season. I think they produced us 2 or 3 chicks, which are outdoors in the flights now. So good news from those guys. And we also have 3 greeny chicks in this breeding cage down here. Now, these are under a pair of crossbred feeder canaries, and the reason being for that is the parents are outside. When the hen laid those eggs, she started to pluck a couple of feathers, she was starting to molt, and I just knew that if I left the eggs for maybe a week or so, she might sit them and then stop, and if the eggs got to a point they were going to hatch, she'd stop feeding them. So after candling them at 7 days old, I made the judgment to pull the eggs from her, put them under the canaries. I'm glad I did, because she's now fully molting outdoors, and they are now rearing those 3 chicks, which look really good. So great news with them, and that's a pair of greenies. I haven't yet bred any youngsters off this season, so that's always an added bonus as well. So if everything goes well with all these chicks and they survive to adulthood, you know, they get to be weaned and malted out, then we'll have 17 greenies bred this season. And so far, those guys are looking really good. Anyway, that is the end of Breeding British Birds episode 16. I really hope you've enjoyed the show today. So if you have, please make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss any more future content. If you enjoyed it, make sure to smash a like on it as well. That would be very much appreciated. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook for daily updates and behind the scenes footage from all of our birds. Now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.